Hello friends, today's topic is about what is epimers. This question is frequently asked in a viva of chemistry of carbohydrate. So what is epimer that we are going to look. So first of all, epimers, that word is related to the monosaccharide. When monosaccharide that differ in their configuration around one carbon atom only other than the anomeric carbon or the first carbon, then they are considered as a anomeric carbon of each other. Now further in detail of this epimer that we are going to look. So simple example that D-glucose and D-mannose. Here you have to remember isomer, that is particular D and D-mannose, and D-glucose is utilized, not a D-glucose and L-mannose. But this D-glucose and D-mannose are the epimer of each other in relation to the second carbon. Same way as the D-glucose and D-mannose, D-glucose and D-galactose, they are also epimer with regard to the fourth carbon. So this D-glucose and D-mannose are differing in relation to the second carbon only, while D-glucose and D-galactose, they are differing to each other in relation to the fourth carbon only. So they are the epimer. But you have to remember that mannose and galactose are not epimer. So further in detail, they are differing from each other, means glucose and mannose, particularly glucose and galactose, that all are the D variety. They are differing to each other in relation to their one, only just one carbon arrangement is differing, so they are considered as a epimer. Further from the picture that we are going to understand that particularly here structure of the D-glucose. How we have understand that D-glucose, because hydroxyl group that is over the right hand side, so it is a D-glucose. Now here that total picture of that glucose molecule is present. Now suppose we are going to understand that another molecule that is also showing that same structure, but this same structure means C6H12O6 is there, but here that arrangement that is over the second carbon is differing. So this molecule is a D variety because over the penultimate carbon hydroxyl group that is over the right hand side, but whether it is a which particular molecule, it is a D-mannose. Here that how you can understand, suppose you have understand that D-glucose but they are differing only in relation to the second carbon, then it is considered D-mannose. Same way there is another molecule, so it is same structure as a D-glucose, but it is differing to the D-glucose only in relation to the fourth carbon. Now this fourth carbon or fourth epimer, that is D-galactose. So you have to remember that D-glucose and D-mannose, that is relation to the epimer, but that is relation of the second carbon. But D-glucose and D-galactose, that is in relation to the fourth carbon. So they are differing to each other, means glucose is differing to mannose in relation to the second carbon, while glucose and galactose, they are differing in relation to the fourth carbon. So second epimer, that is mannose, and fourth epimer, that is galactose. But here one more thing, suppose you are taking consideration of mannose and galactose, they are not epimer. So sometime if examiner is asked whether mannose and galactose are epimer, they are not epimer because they will differ to each other in relation to the two carbon. So they are not epimer, but this glucose and mannose are the epimer in relation to the second carbon, while glucose and galactose, they are epimer in relation to the fourth carbon. So that is all about the epimer in relation to the monosaccharide.